Welcome to Stories from the Standing Room. Join us for tales of history, phantoms, folklore, ghost stories, mysterious happenings, and more. A playful and fun weekly podcast with a
British husband and his American wife.
Join us from inside our 450-year-old home in the English countryside.
For journeys into the past, the arcane, and the downright spooky.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 10 of Stories from the Standing Room.
Hello.
Today, we are talking about, husband?
Communication.
Yes, otherworldly communication. And for those of you in SoundCloud world, iTunes, YouTube, thank you for your patience. Facebook Live audience is with us. Woo! Give it up for the Facebook Live audience. They're there. And we are working out all of our kinks because we have had baptism by fire.
Crazy
so
stuff.
It's been nuts. So we are trying something new. We are feeding to one camera, one audio. We're letting the Facebook audience live be live. And we're going to go ahead and talk about something that happened last week.
Yeah, which any of you who saw last week's show will be aware of. I don't think anything came across on their sound, did it?
No. What we want to explain is today's episode is about otherworldly communication. So it can be anything from pendulums, Ouija boards, can be any talking boards, anything otherworldly, any other ways you've got some...
people have either accidentally come across things or through psychic means or people attempt... Well, in most cases, will attempt
to get divine communication, and it's been going on since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
But last week, when we were filming, this is crazy. We had a feed going to the computer, which was supposed to be grabbing our audio feed, but it did. It was grabbing the audio feed, but there was a massive buzz on it, so it was unusable. But in the audio feed, which was our microphones are now not touching this table. This is the table that we are on. I don't know if you can see it. They can't see it.
Yeah.
But the table is from what year?
The table's about 1680.
1680.
Yeah, so it's had a long history.
It's made of oak, right?
It's made of oak. Yep.
Okay, so we're actually doing the table that's been around for a long time, and it's seen a lot of stuff. So we actually had this. I'll show you what was on there. This is actually the splitter that I had our mics feeding into and was laying on the table. Now, I'm wisely not doing that this week because
it was picking up other stuff.
Yeah, it actually picked up another sound, and the sound sounds like we're going to play it for you.
Well, we're going to play. I mean, there's two potential things we talked about over the week. It could sound like so we play it, and then we give you the two things we thought it sounded like. So we'd like to know what you think.
They're going to say that we're crazy. They're going to go, I don't know.
Well, that's part of the fun of it, isn't it? Crazy people.
Okay, one feed is coming from the camera, and there's no difference. There's nothing happening. There's no lights, there's no orbs, there's no nothing. This is the straight feed from the communication that we were giving to you last week.
Okay.
All animals, yeah. Oh, that was, it was something that was absolutely very, when we had a language guest that visited us from Saudi Arabia, absolutely disliked cats more than anyone I ever met.
I think he disliked animals.
Okay, so other than just us bumbling along, it's just us talking. This is what the microphone that was on the table, picked up during that particular time.
This is what's interesting, what we're about to play now.
We want you to hear this and
tell us what you think.
Okay, just listen.
All animals.
Yeah. Oh. It's actually, you know what? It's actually Saudi Arabia absolutely disliked cats more than anyone I ever. Okay, I'm going to play the original one again because I know it's kind of confusing. Our voices all of a sudden become echoey, and also there's something in there I don't remember saying. Actually, it's actually.
Yeah, that's the strange. That's the odd thing too. But the thing with the voices is that it sounds the surrounding changes. It sounds like we're recording in a room with a stone floor,
with water,
a higher ceiling.
Yep.
There's water running in the background.
It's really difficult to exactly hear this. We're going to play it again. Then I'm going to insert it manually into the podcast so they can actually hear the real thing in first generation.
Yeah.
So thank God Harry's with us because he's a tech guy. He knows you can't really hear crap when it's on the air like this. But here is what we really said. All animals. Yeah. Oh. That was, it was something that was absolutely very, when we had a language guest that visited us from Saudi Arabia, absolutely disliked cats more than anyone I ever met. Okay.
Yeah.
So talk about, actually, obviously I say that a lot, and then it goes into the Saudi Arabia. Here is what the microphone on the table from 1680 or 1690 picked up.
Separately.
Now listen closely, please. Not to that. That's Brock. Here we go.
All animals. Yeah. Oh. It's actually, you know what? It's actually. Saudi Arabia absolutely did this.
Now, did you hear that?
It was so. I mean, we first thought it was
I thought it was a winding of a grandfather
clock because we've got Peter the grandfather clock, and there is a grandfather clock over there, which isn't working at the moment from 1740s. So we thought, was it connected with the clock over there, or was it connected to a clock that used to be in this room at some point in the past?
Or in this space, because we're on the second floor, up above, which in England is called the first floor.
Yeah.
No, wait, yes.
Yes, in England.
This is the second floor in America. There's a third floor up above. So we don't really know. We're right behind the main windows. We very well could be over the kitchen. She says banging noises like adjusting something close. Yeah, let me play that again really quick. That's Hannah. Thank you, Hannah. I want you to listen again. It sounds like a winding.
So it could be either a clock or preparation in the kitchen.
But it did not come over, and we did not hear it. It did not come over on the camera feed. It only came over, again, on the sound that was laying on the table.
All animals. Yeah. Oh. It's actually, you know what? It's actually.
There you go. Yeah.
Absolutely disliked cats more than.
And also, I can't find that actually at all.
Yeah, that's
actually
weird.
In the entire feed. So anyway, we thought that was interesting, and also trouble. It was trouble trying to mix the video with the audio. So it's been nothing but drama. So now we're feeding directly to the camera. Hopefully
there'll be no more
crossed,
interference.
yes. Because today we're going to talk about communication, husband.
Communication.
So we want Brock. They can
Brock
see
is
Brock.
communicating nicely. Yeah.
For our podcast folk, our cat is here with us.
Star of the show as always.
And also you can see the other end of Brock quite clearly.
Yeah.
For those on YouTube, so that's good. All right.
Took you down.
So we were going to talk about otherworldly communication been going on since the beginning of time. One of the most popular things people think of course, are the Ouija boards or the Ouija board. Do you know what Ouija means?
Well, I had a feeling it was. Well, I know it was a talking board when it came out, but there were several. It was supposed to be a communicated spirit. Said this is how it works, and I understand it, and they said that you will call it the Ouija board.
Yeah, it was said that it named itself. That actually in ancient Egypt, I guess, or something, they said it was an Egyptian name for good luck.
Yeah.
But we, like we, no, we,
yeah,
we, yes, ja, yes in German. So both yes, yes. So we don't know. We really don't know exactly. The talking board can be, it can be. It doesn't have to be called Ouija or Ouija. But they are probably the most common thing you think about talking to others.
And they're the things that people kind of play with. People don't go for. He wants to be.
It's endless. Just
people
let him go.
Don't want to always go to seances or mediums, but they're much more willing to kind of engage or play, particularly when it comes to Halloween. It's something that comes out. And actually, that's where it becomes potentially quite a threatening thing.
Oh, you might just drop. Do you want to just go and grab that, make sure that's still good? Sorry, Brock. Okay,
yeah,
it's good. Okay. Okay, so the history of otherworldly communication, you were going to talk about the very, very beginning, back in the Oracle of Delphi.
The Oracle. Well, we have so many different global cultures which would use forms of communication within temples, within religious ritual, but far further back than we don't know, but we know certainly as far as records go that you're finding the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, etc., are using it. I mean, one of the things that we do particularly we are aware of in the West is the Oracle of Delphi, which is in central Greece. The Oracle of Delphi would be accessed. I think it was 9 times a year, and it was a certain amount of ritual that went with going to the oracle, and the oracle would go to these fumes. It was basically the Delphi is built on a fault line, and there are certain gases that bubble up through the water.
That's interesting.
And these were fed into the temple of Apollo, and the priestess, the main priestess, this had been going on for thousands of years before. It was only tight in the 6th and 7th century BC.
Did you just say tight?
Height.
Oh, at its height. Sorry.
Yeah, it was mostly. It was used mostly in as far as it being of importance, cultural importance in the 6th and 7th century
Yes.
in ancient Greece. But it had been there for probably sort of thousands of years. So there was a fissure in the rock, and it brought up gases, and these gases are used to build, basically produced forms of hallucinogenic state. And from that, the priestesses or the epithea would enter into this trance-like state and give prophecies
of who's going to win what battle and what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, there was a famous prophecy, and I think it was the king of the country which is now Turkey, and I can't remember what it was called at the time. But he said he went to the oracle saying, "I want to declare war on the Persians.
Yes.
Should I do this?"
Ooh.
And the oracle of the epithea says, "If you do this, a great civilization will be destroyed." So he went ahead.
And did it?
No, he lost totally. His own civilization was destroyed and taken over by the Persians. So it was true.
It was true, wasn't it?
And when you went into Delphi, carved in marble as you entered the Temple of Apollo, it just simply said, "Know thyself."
Oh, that's
Because if you don't know yourself, you don't know how to read the answer, because it was not always a black and white kind of yes, go ahead, or don't do this. It was very hidden in meaning, shall we say.
Well, it's interesting, yeah.
And so when you entered it, the main thing that was brought to your attention before you went in to see the epitaphy was this simple term on the wall, when it just said, "Know thyself."
Well, that's actually something that is huge. Even now, you must be true to your own self. Know yourself. Man, know thyself, which is the ultimate philosophical question: is who are we, what are we, why are we? Right?
Yeah, because if you don't understand yourself, you won't understand the answer if you don't understand what your question is too.
That's interesting. Also, when people, even in the Ouija board of today, that if you come to the Ouija board with negative emotions, if you're under the influence of alcohol, if you're in a bad state, you will attract the bad. If you're in a good and happy state, they say clear your thoughts and all that, and then they say that you don't contact as much. So even in the small things like the Ouija boards of today, know yourself, know your intentions. Where is your space? Are you in a positive or negative space?
But I suppose also the theory is that you're communicating generally, you're casting a net out, and it's like opening your door and asking people in. Now, you could ask some nice guy who's walking past, or you could ask the local drunk who's going to come in with a gun and blow your head off. You don't know. You open the door, you don't know who you're really going to invite in. Right.
And so if you were in a negative state and drinking, they say that it's easier for you to make poor choices.
I'm sure
you are
it would.
In a lower vibration.
It would attract something. Yeah. And even, I mean, I don't know what my personal view is on Ouija, really. I'm undecided. But even if it's just psychological, if you're in a psychologically low state, you could actually completely kind of become paranoid in what happens in that. If you're in a certain psychological state, it can trip all kinds of fears and anxieties.
Well, I think our feeling is that we don't want to do it. That's why when communicating with this by accident, we thought, oh, maybe we could lay this on the table and see what it has to say. But isn't that the same thing as doing a Ouija board?
Kind of, but I suppose you're not getting into a conversation. You're just recording what's happening. You're not. I don't know.
Do you remember the story of the woman who left the recording running in her kitchen and she heard the murder?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they say that was
Don't do it in your own home.
Don't do it in your own house.
Yourself. Yeah. And don't do anything in your own home.
What have we done? We haven't done this since last week. We said we were going to maybe try just to see.
But then we were a bit like, maybe,
should
maybe
we not? Just because it is otherworldly does not necessarily mean that it's good. Just because it's not of the physical world, it does not mean that that's a good thing. Doesn't mean you've reached the ultimate and pinnacle divine knowledge.
No, not at all. You don't know where you've gone. You could have gone anywhere. You could be speaking to anything or anyone, as it were.
That's true. You got to be very, very, very careful. So you're going to talk about the Fox sisters as well.
The Fox sisters. Well, I was just going to move us along and say, so within there were often mystics globally and people that would claim to speak to spirits, etc., throughout history. And then there were people like, what was his name? Franz Mesmer in the 18th century.
Mesmerized.
Where mesmerized come from.
Are you mesmerized?
Yeah, I am totally mesmerized.
Okay, it's by my beauty?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Franz Mesmer, he actually talked about forces, magnetic forces and things, and he talked about spirits and things. But there was not a great deal going on at that period. And then in 1848, upstate New York in Hydesville, which I think is by Newark,
No.
There was these three sisters, the Fox sisters, and they started to hear banging and rapping around the house, and they couldn't explain where it was coming from. And they thought it was coming from. They thought the neighbours were playing tricks initially, and then they started. It seemed to be a door. So one was one side of the door, the other sister would be the other side of the door, and neither were knocking, but they could still hear this rapping. And this went on for several weeks. And then the younger sister, I think was called Kate, she decided to ask the entity, the thing, whatever a question.
Was rapping.
And she said, oh, and it's 2 knocks for yes and 1 knock for no. And that's exactly. And that gave birth to modern spiritualism, because they started to, neighbours came in and the neighbours kind of saw and heard this. They later basically made a show of it.
Of course, as you do.
And I think it was Barnum's cousin that had the Barnum Hotel in New York on Broadway. And so they started putting shows on there, and I had links with Barnum. So it became across the US for the first year or so, quickly became a global phenomenon. Then it spread out to Europe.
Well, it would draw crowds.
It drew crowds, and this whole idea of what they call table knocking, table tapping, 1 tap for 2 yes and 1 tap for no and 2 for yes, you know what I mean. What happened is that this gave birth to this whole idea of spiritualism and the seance, because the seance as an idea hadn't really taken off at this point. It was
well, they probably had maybe through the years, but as far as the big spiritualism, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like that. But also what happens is that you get this growth, but also you get a huge growth, and people just see it as like a way of making money. So you get a lot of people coming in, and a lot of strange fakes and good fakes.
You got a ton of
not
fakes.
so good ones.
People taking advantage of people desperate, especially people grieving, who are desperate to be able to find out if their loved ones have made it to where they're going. So they would take advantage.
And one of the things also is that photography is just coming into its own. So it's the maths, it's the birth of math photography. And people didn't understand the process of photography and realise you could expose one plate over another. So the so-called spirit photographers literally made a killing. And I think it was Boston. It was only when someone who'd bought several of these started noticing several of the so-called ghosts walking around Boston that he started to ask questions, and then
there they are.
And so there were unscrupulous photographers who were creating
dubious and unscrupulous.
Yeah, I mean, to us they don't look very sophisticated, but to them,
back then that would be really big. They thought they were capturing your spirit if you were on a photograph.
So I mean, so going back to the Fox sisters developed the idea of the seance and communication. Now, it all gets a bit muddy because, as like many of the spiritualists of the time, you get one lot of people who will say, we disproved them, this is why they didn't do it, and then you get another lot of people saying, no, you set them up and they were true. So there are two. It's quite. There is still a debate on many of these aspects of 19th century spirituality and spiritualism, because you get people who are saying, well, this is how they were found out and this is how they were faking it. And other people are saying, well, no, that actually wasn't the case. They were set up and people were trying to prove them to be wrong. So you can't actually, we know there were a lot of fakes, but in certain cases, we're not quite sure if they were genuinely disproved now, because we haven't got the evidence and people aren't alive. We can't go back and confirm statements. But we don't know if they were genuinely trying to grab people's money through this kind of fakery.
I think there's a lot of people that do that today.
There are. Or if how many of them were potentially genuine psychics? We don't know.
The ones with the ectoplasm that looks like dryer hoses, or maybe a crumpled up sheet, that was fake.
Yeah.
But
a handkerchief.
Yes, but to people who had never seen it before, that was intriguing. And of course, you can get an audience. So therefore, you get an audience, you get money, you get power, you get more position. I do believe there's something to the spiritualism movement, something very beautiful, something really true. But I think it was corrupt by people.
Yeah,
because
money.
Money and greed and power corrupt.
They do, totally.
Yeah. So the spiritualism movement had a big swing at the end of the 19th century. Yeah, it
had a really big swing.
Who were you think was shutting it down the most?
Well, there were there were two camps really, traditional camps who had you had the scientific community who were saying, well, this is unscientific, it's just silly nonsense. And then you had the established church who were saying, well, this threatens our control. And that's one of the things also what happened after the First World War. Many people said they went to the established churches. After millions and millions of men had been killed during the First World War, they said, well, the established church isn't answering our needs, but spiritualism is. So you do see that spike, which happens again after the First World War.
Yes, because of the grieving and trying to figure out the answers,
so
trying to figure out the unknown.
many people, it was like, well, was this an absolute waste of so many lives, millions and millions of lives?
That's a big question, isn't it?
So but of course that gave another window for a lot of people who were known charlatans, but other people that may not have been. There
are still today psychics that say, I can contact your loved one, and if you pay me, $250,000. And then there's, when you use magic for yourself, for selfish means, then it still goes on.
Oh yeah, it's an easy, because you've got vulnerable people.
Yes.
And you put them in a situation where they can't even question what's going on. They just have to,
Remember the psychic lines? Did you guys get the 900 psychic lines?
No, we missed that one.
You didn't have the dial 900 so-and-so and you get Miss Clear.
Well, they might have been there on some back of the newspaper, but I wasn't very aware.
They were big. They're huge. And it was like, I don't know, $10 a minute or something. Yeah. And most of the people are calling about love or money.
Yeah. And all you need is like a couple of dollars for a pack of tarot cards. It's like...
You can do some divining. Can you do a reading for our viewers?
I probably wouldn't have time to do a reading.
Let's do a one-card reading, or 2 cards.
Well, let's just draw 2.
How about for Brock?
Well, or you could divine.
Well, we can do that too, but let's do the card. We're going to go ahead and... these are beautiful cards. You want to hold them up to the... They actually want a reading. Hello, Renee. Hello, everybody.
I think the light is...
Yeah, the light might be a little bright.
The studio light is hitting them.
Those are beautiful. They look medieval.
There are 2... I'm quite interested in just the design of tarot. So I've always been interested in just the design aspect. Now, there's a major set, which is... I suppose I can't remember the exact number, but it's like in the 40s. And then is it like 21 or 22? Sorry. There's the minor set, which is probably where the playing cards come from. You have the cups and the pentagrams and the swords, etc. 4 sets. Yes. And then you have the major set, which is...
Kings and Queens.
Yeah, the Magician, the World, the Sun, Judgment, the Hanged Man, the Emperor.
Tower.
Yeah, the Fool. And actually, I won't get too much, but you're the Fool, according to the Thesis Journey. And the Fool actually did mean something else historically. It's not what we understand now. The Fool is the Seeker. You're the Seeker, and that is supposed to be you in the card. You're the Fool.
Are you doing a drawing right now?
No, I was just...
In general? You just decided to say that your wife is the Fool?
No, all of us. If anyone's reading the tarot, you're actually... That's the first card. Yes. That's the Fool. That's like the 0 card.
We are searching.
Yeah, you're the person who wants the answer, and then it moves up. It starts with the Magician, and it moves all the way through.
Well, let's do a drawing. Why not? Come on. We have to clear our palate, make sure that we're in a positive state. Are you in a positive state? I feel positive.
Yeah.
Let's do a drawing for, I don't know, for the show, for this particular show, or something.
Like a 2-card draw?
Yeah, why not?
I can't always remember all of the... I
know,
admit,
me neither. But
I used to know this when I was a kid. I
think it's just up to interpretation on the way we feel about that particular card. We know what the Empress and all that kind of stuff means. Let's just try a 2-card draw. There you go. Did you shuffle them? That wasn't a big shuffle.
It's okay. It's only when it feels right.
All right. Oh.
The Emperor.
The Emperor and the Hanged Man.
The Hanged Man. No, I didn't do that properly because you're supposed to actually focus in on it, so it doesn't actually mean anything.
Right.
I just shuffled, so there's no meaning to this. I'm not actually seriously doing a reading here. I've just chosen 2 cards just to show how the principle works.
It's funny that the Hangman crosses the Emperor, because that could be what is I don't want to say obstacle, but what is in the, there could be... Whatever the Hangman is up to interpretation.
Well, the Hangman is changed. The Emperor is ego. It's particularly the male aspect, and it can actually be associated with other cards. It can be associated... Well, I'm not a great tarot reader, this is my understanding.
Just do your thing.
If you know more from me, you please...
There might be a few that know more than me.
I think the Emperor is about more about the ego. The Hangman is also about change. The Hangman is can be quite a quick change too. So it's a change to, and this is the dominant card over that one. So
he does have a nimbus, a halo around his head, and he's not hung from the neck. He is just suspended from his foot, which is interesting because he is either stopped in his tracks to take a moment and be, I don't know,
turned upside down. But so that's I mean that's one of the things people have used.
Let's do the pendulum.
Yeah, I was just going to say tarot card. It's hard to know whether. I mean, there are lots of theories where tarot cards started. Some say it goes back a long time. There's not a great deal of evidence before the early 18th century.
Of tarot cards?
Yeah, but we don't quite know where it started. They probably do go back a long way.
Well, because it's anything. They used to read tea leaves and all kinds of stuff just to get any kind of... Actually, it's kind of comforting. I can understand why people would want that. It's like, help me, please, and I'm going to go ahead and help you help me by getting these tea leaves together. I actually have a tea bag in here.
It's not the same. It's not going to work.
The same thing. No, but if the pendulum, you want to explain to them how the pendulum works, because
I mean, like all of this stuff, I'm actually just personally interested in the design aspect, and so the theory of a pendulum. Most people use it so it goes in a single direction. So you say which way is I do this. So which way is yes. So that's going clockwise. And which way is no?
Subliminal. That is subliminal.
It is. I do believe it's subliminal. And that way is no.
Might be your higher self. Maybe you have an access to your higher self that way.
Maybe.
Okay, so counterclockwise is no.
Well, it will always change. You have to if you're using this, you have to. And one of the things you have to do with a pendulum, and you don't need. This is the pendulum I happen to have. It's a crystal pendulum. It's lovely. Because I saw it in the shop and I thought that's really pretty. I've got to have that. However, you can actually use a lot of people claim it has to be quite personal. So you can use a ring you're wearing and a hair.
So we cut your hair off?
Well, just a single hair.
Just one hair. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's do that then.
But you can use anything. You can use a piece of cotton and a ring. It doesn't have to be anything special. And you will ask it which way is yes, which way is no. It's fine.
Do you want one of my hairs?
No. Let's just use this.
Okay, what are you going to ask?
I'm just saying to anyone if they want to try this.
Hold it up a little bit so the camera.
There is a tickly feeling in the hand. So
it feels warm?
For those of you who are listening to this, it's a pendulum. I'm hanging it above my hand, and it is going around clockwise as yes. And I'll say which way is no.
Honey, you are moving it as sure as could be.
No, you're not.
You are.
Well, the brain is moving it probably,
but you
don't know. You put your hand underneath and you have a go.
Okay. I'm having a go.
Put it about that and say, okay, you'll feel a tingliness.
I do.
Okay, and then ask it with your mind which way is yes.
Which way is yes?
With your mind. Just which way is yes.
It's not going anyway.
No, if you haven't tried it before, it will just take a minute.
There you go.
It will go. You'll feel the tingle in your hand.
I'll be damned. That's crazy.
No, just because it's the first time you've done it, you just got to hang with this a minute.
I'm hanging, like the hanged man.
Yeah, so ask it again, which way is yes?
Which way is yes?
And just focus on that, and it takes about 30 seconds to tune into this.
I'll be damned.
It will.
It says, yes, I will be damned. What do you know?
No, you haven't asked the question.
Honey, no, I can't.
I
do have to say that moved
anyway.
Without me. I literally tried not to move it. Well, and there's also some gravity movement and there's some arm jiggling.
The strange thing that I've always noticed about this is not so much about the fact it goes round, because I think your brain can control it, but you can feel kind of a tickliness in the hand. So it's quite strange when you do that. Now, there is another way to use this, and I used to use this in the old house, which had potentially 2 ley lines running through it.
Tell them what a ley line is.
It's an energy point that usually goes from ancient churches to standing stones, and the theory is that they've been there for forever, and people put these churches and standing stones on this to mark it thousands of years ago.
Earth's heart lines.
Yeah, like a Gaia archery. It's like the energies that run around the planet. So we were told at the old house that we had 2, and the old house is interesting because we had the well to the castle inside.
We did have a well underneath our house. We literally had it built in it was closed up in a room, and it was a massive water source. There are Tutnesians online right now that know exactly what we're talking about. We lived in the old bakery at the top of the Narrows, and so a lot of our walls were wet from the moisture from this well.
I mean, we're talking about like 12 feet across. because it was a whole space in the corner. It would have been a room if you think how big it would have been.
Yeah, there's actually an old pump from 1607 outside, but that would have been new.
That's new.
Yeah.
But it was a water source to the castle, so it had this thing. But when you walked around I haven't tried this in this house, I must admit. But when you walked around like that to the house, it would actually. There was a point where whenever you try, it would actually go across like that. It would actually begin to go at an angle. Now, I don't know why that happened. So I was always more interested in how this happened. I haven't tried it in this house, but how this would actually happen, because it would actually, whenever you got to a certain point, it would actually, it was greater than gravity. Now, what that was, I really don't know. But
you also had the make it yourself, wands. What do you call those? Where you take a wire hanger and you bend them and you put them in pencils and you hold them, and he would walk with them and you could find the water. They cross at the water.
Find the same
what are they called? Divining rods.
Divining rods.
Yeah.
No, I've got a friend Jane, and we tried it at her house about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, actually more now. It's probably in the 80s.
Yeah.
And some of us were willing to believe, some of us openly believed, some of us are sceptical, some of us are openly sceptical. There were a mix of people there. So what we decided, we drew a map of the garden, and we all drew a map, and we all went out and we drew little little crosses where they crossed.
Right. Where yours crossed?
Where everyone. So you went out, and if you found, we devised a route around. It was about an acre.
Yeah.
Or maybe over an acre, and through trees and all the.
Right.
So we did this little route around the garden, and we walked around with these, and we marked, and then we didn't show one another. We folded it, and then we all put it back, and I think nearly all of us came up with exactly the same spots.
That's
where they
really
crossed.
interesting.
So that was it. And if you pay for, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but if you pay for the water board here to come and check for water, if you're on a farm, they use dividing rods and they charge you £80.
Really? We can do it
for
for
the
free.
water company say, well, yeah, we don't know how it works, so that's how they find water.
Well, let's tell them how to make their own pair. If you want to make a pair, if you have a wire hanger, you take them and bend them, and you put them in pencil holders. Well, take a pen apart.
Yeah, two pens, two like ballpoint pens.
Two ballpoint pens. Take the pen apart, so you have
you've
the
got
tube.
the tubes,
and then you stick like the bent part there, and it has to be straight. And then
so it's like a letter L, so like this,
Don't hold them tight. Literally, just rest them in your hand.
Yeah.
And you'll question your judgment as well. You go, I'm moving them. But they do cross when you go back and check. They cross again.
Usually when they go over water. So if you go over your drainage or anything, it will pick up the water.
What if you go over my tea?
I don't know.
Would that work? Because it's a body of water.
I think it has to be more from that. I think it has to be like flowing water or quite a water source.
Did you ever hear about that restaurant that they designed with Ouija boards in mind?
No.
Where you sit at the table and you think of a certain meal and then the table will move towards that. I can't do it. Okay, so you're sitting at the table. We're not live, what am I going to do?
Wife. Anyway, you're sitting at a table, we just got a Ouija board on.
Oh my God, no way, and it's a buffet and everything. You sit and you think about a certain meal, and then the table moves towards the... It moves towards...
It's on wheels.
No, it's a Ouija board, so it reads your mind, and it just moves towards...
Well, how can it read your mind?
It's a joke, honey.
Oh, I thought it was a real... I thought you were telling me... I was trying to work out how they set this up. Oh.
I'm so don't get it. So you're sitting at a table and you think of a meal like I'm thinking of salad. So your table go towards the salad, then you're thinking of your spaghetti, then it move towards the spaghetti. Stephen Wright is a comedian, and he wrote it and did it so well. I did it terrible. I'm so sorry, honey. Your little face. You're like,
I just like, what?
Oh my God! And then if you see what's funny is because you imagine a bunch of people at a table, thinking of a certain food, and the table moves towards the food. That's funny. But it's all in the delivery.
But you've got a Ouija board ghost story.
I do, and that's what was my opening for it. But I obviously ruined it because I couldn't handle it, nor could I stop from wetting your chair. All right. Yes, we do have a Ouija board story, and we want to ask you about what are you laughing at? How stupid that is. I know it is.
I'm
stupid.
still like.
I'm so silly.
Yeah. Anyway, but to the Ouija board story.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry. Stephen Wright, thank you very much for that. He is one of the funniest comedians in the world. Like he says, he came home and he put his car key in the house and the house started up and he drove it around for a while. He's very, very funny. He is a very funny man. Anyway, yes. Thank you for your ghost stories. We always need more. We need you to send them in. We need you to send them in to storiesfromthestandingroom.com. You now have your own email address, which is husband.
That's another thing I need to check. Yeah.
At Stories from the Standing Room. We did not. Well, we did check. I checked him earlier, and they were.
Oh, good. Yeah.
You're still laughing about that.
No, I wasn't laughing in the first place.
I know. All right. Wait. Anyway. Anne at storiesfromthestandingroom.com or husband at storiesfromthestandingroom.com, or you can hit us up on our Facebook page, which is Stories from the Standing Room, and also on Twitter. Hello, shout out to our Twitters.
Yes,
we have actually got some amazing followers on Twitter.
Excellent.
Thank you. We're Standing Room HRH, and we will soon have a members only section on our website.
Will we?
Yes, we will. We have a lot of stuff going on.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
the HRHs, yeah.
The HRHs. Do you want to tell them what HRH stands for?
In a couple of weeks.
Come on.
Let's.
It's time for a ghost story.
Haunted
Rooms in History.
Haunted Rooms in History.
HRH, also known as Her Royal or His Royal Highness. Honey, that was hilarious. Okay. This is submitted by Anonymous, but we want to say thank you very much for the stories we've gotten. We've gotten several.
Yep.
And are you laughing about that? Was mad.
Not yet.
All right, here we go. This is a serious Ouija board story. It's actually very scary, and it is disturbing, so we have got to get out of the silliness. We must pay attention. Okay.
Yeah, I'm out.
I know. You were never in.
No, not really.
Not really. Okay. I didn't tell it very well. It's hideous. All right, here we go. Many years ago, my father was in the army and had to go off somewhere in the world far away. I was too little to know much, and I don't recall exactly where he was, but it was prior to his leaving for the Vietnam War. My mother, sister, and I went to live with relatives while my dad was overseas. He had been gone a long time, and so our little trio kept ourselves busy while we waited for him. Sister and I were really just babies, and so after we were put to bed one night, a friend came over to visit and asked my mother if she would like to play a new game to entertain themselves after dinner. And she agreed. It was called Ouija. From the story my mother told, the evening started normal enough. The friends would play a fun parlor game, and although she wasn't really sure how it all worked or whether it was true that a mysterious-looking board and a plastic thing could really do anything at all, she figured she'd give it a try. They began to place their hands on the plastic pointer and ask various questions. When it was my mother's turn, don't peek, her thoughts were of my father so far away in the army. She asked the Ouija whether he was alive. And slowly the plastic piece began to slide. Is this me doing this or what? She thought. Can this actually be real? Skeptical, she continued to hold her hands lightly on the pointer as it slid to the word yes. Whew, she thought.
Relief.
She was thankful for that positive confirmation that her husband was alive. At least the board thought so anyway. Or maybe it was her steering the pointer, which is a common thing. You think, is it me moving it? How could she be sure that she didn't move the pointer herself? They continued. This game was kind of fun. They began to really enjoy it. As she began to ask a series of specific questions, tell me, since my husband is alive, is he out on the sea? And within seconds, the movement began and the plastic pointer slid silently to the word no. My dad was also a pilot at this time, so she asked, tell me, is my husband in the air? Once again, the pointer moved and no was the reply. She thought. She began to ask a series of additional probing questions. Is he here? Is he there? Is he this? Is he that? Each coming back faster and sliding her confidently to the word no. Faster and faster, feeling a little strange to be asking the bird all these questions and wondering if he was really okay the whole time. She continued on. She rested her fingertips ever so delicately, lightly, like Botchkin.
Yeah.
As if to assure herself that she could not be doing this, she could not be influencing this movement. She continued on in her questioning, and after exhausting every possible whereabouts that my father could be, she asked one more question. This time in a fashion that would demand more than a yes or no answer. Where then? Where is he? She asked. Slowly the pointer piece began to move, gliding up to the alphabet letters. One by one, the letters were touched. First an H, then an E. He, she said, and her hands lightly pressed the pointer, still not sure if she had been directing this in some way, or if the mysterious force really did inhabit the board. The Ouija spelled out the next letters. I, then an S. He is. Mom began to realize it was a message. He is. Go on. She realized, and she watched the pointer race back and forth, moving fluidly to each letter. He is. He is. He is. He is what? She says. He is, the letters furiously spelling out, he is here. H-E-R-E. The pointer slid fast, and I've got goosebumps, and far off the side of the board, and then onto the floor. And at the same moment, the doorbell rang. And her father, who had been gone for a very long time, was standing in the doorway at that very moment.
That's a really good one.
Yes, in the doorway.
It's also really well written.
It is extremely well written. And he had come home on a special leave, and he wanted to surprise us. The event was supposed to surprise her. Whew. And she was determined that it was so very accurate that she never played it again. Isn't that a great story? Thank you, Anonymous. Thank you, Anonymous.
Yeah, Anonymous, we love you.
Oh my gosh. They've actually submitted another one for next week, actually.
Oh,
that's the visitors. The visitors. My
visitors.
goodness. So listen, if you have any otherworldly happenings, Anonymous was a little bit there was a little bit of cajoling, but once Anonymous came through, there's a whole bunch.
Excellent.
And a brilliant writer, brilliantly explained. And doesn't that encapsulate how all of us feel? You know, are we moving it? You're moving it. Come on. You're moving it.
Yeah, it's like you do this or anything.
He is here. So what was it? What was on the board? What was in the board?
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
so how would you feel if we played with the Ouija board in the house? I would feel no. I'd say no.
I've never been comfortable with Ouija boards. I've just personally had a kind of feeling of, certainly it's not a game, and I just don't like the idea that, it seems to me that the most, the things that would probably be the most easy to contact would be the most earthbound and negative. It's like the things that would stick to that kind of potential answer. And there's also a certain name, I can't remember.
Oh God, don't say it.
Yeah, there is a name which is associated with Ouija, and it's apparently it's cropped up. Yeah, it's cropped up hundreds of thousands of times.
No.
So you just think, well, is this in people's heads? Because people have reported this, but they haven't known about this theory. So no, I mean, just knowing that alone would mean I wouldn't want to touch it.
But I would say if you don't know what you're dealing with, it'd be like walking around outside, you know, naked with your purse open.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't really know who's going to come by.
Is it going to be a neighbour who's going to say, excuse me, your purse is there and you're naked. I think you ought to go home. Or is it going to be anyone? Yeah.
Yes, it could be. That's a very good analogy.
So it's like, and also the idea that it's sold as a game. Yeah,
do you know something? I'm going to tell you something. It outsold Monopoly the first year.
I'm sure it did.
It did. 2 million.
Completely, yeah.
In the early 70s or late 60s. I can't remember exactly when, but
there was a big spike in the early 70s. I remember
every household had one.
Yeah, I remember in about 1970 it went huge because I think it must have become kind of forgotten as a game, and then it was relaunched by whatever the big game place people were.
Oh God, it was Mattel, and then I can't remember who. It's Parker Brothers or something like that.
Something like that. I think of
Do you know who Alice Cooper is? Is Alice Cooper big over here?
Yeah, School's Out Forever.
Okay, yeah, School's Out. Okay, do you know where he got his name?
Alice Cooper? No, the Ouija board?
Yes.
Really?
Well, that's what one of the stories is.
Yeah, he would, wouldn't he?
He wanted to be as rock star as possible. So the name Alice Cooper, some stories say that it is the name of who he was in a previous life, a woman who was accused of witchcraft, who was executed in the 1600s, Alice Cooper. And sometimes when he's interviewed, the answers are that he chose that name because it sounded so non-confrontational, like somebody's grandmother.
Yeah.
Here comes little Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper. But now we all think Alice Cooper is just totally Alice Cooper.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
You have, here comes this little apple pie baking Alice Cooper Marie Callender's. And then you have.
I never even thought of his name really. I've never even thought that it's a girly name because he's just Alice Cooper.
But when you see him and you call him Alice, you don't think anything of it. But he wanted to be presented like a little old lady that wouldn't harm anybody. And he comes in with the pre-Marilyn Manson days, the shock rock, and but some have said that the band was playing around and they asked about past lives, and that was a name that came up, and he liked it because it sounded so little old lady.
Yeah, it's an interesting story.
His real name is Vincent Vernier.
Oh, that wouldn't work, would it?
No.
Alice
Vincent is a good one.
Yeah, but not as good as Alice. Something about
Cooper,
Alice.
Yeah.
There's something about that.
But he thought it was kind of Lizzie Borden-ish kind of a sound to it. So he got it off the Ouija board. Then, have you ever done a Ouija board before?
No, I've never touched one. Never would.
Ever?
No.
Never?
Ever.
Ever.
I wouldn't stay in the same room. I remember being.
You wouldn't stay in the same room?
No, I remember as a child My cousin Marion had one at a Christmas party in about 1970 when they all came out, and I asked my mum to be taken out of the room.
Really?
And I was 8.
Yes.
Was he 71? Maybe I was 9.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to stay in the same room.
Mm-hmm. Because the vibes, maybe, or maybe... You know, my mother had made one. They didn't have the standard one. They literally got a picture, and they stuck those stick-on letters, and then they put the picture glass back on, and they used... I can't remember what they used. If it was a glass.
A glass, yes.
And that thing wrote volumes and volumes. You couldn't even keep up with what it was saying. And it said all kinds of stuff. I mean, it said... It's actually, you know what? It knew something. It knew something about what I was thinking at the time, and it came up, and she said... The board told me, or whoever it was, David on the board, said that you thought this was for you. And it's true, because I thought it represented my initial. And I was like, that was weird. That was very strange.
Yeah, that is also really scary because I think my thoughts are mine.
It was actually a D that this woman had gotten for this spirit that had come up on the board. She wanted to wear his initial. And so I thought it was for Deanne, for my middle name, because when she bought it, I thought it was for me. And I never said anything to anyone.
And you were a child, so
I was little, of course, everything is from you as a kid. And what was really crazy is she gave me the D because she said the board knew that I thought it was for my middle name. Creep factor.
Yeah, that is really creepy. Yeah, yeah.
True.
No,
and every time I saw the D, I'm like, oh, that was a Ouija board.
That's like getting inside my head. Yes,
it was very strange. Yeah.
No, I don't like the idea of that.
You don't like the idea of that? No. Well, I'll remind you in the middle of the night tonight.
It's all right. No, I don't play with Ouija boards.
No, we don't.
You have.
I didn't. Well, I wrote down the stuff. I tried to keep it. I've played with one alone in the dark.
How could you see what it was saying?
I don't know. I think I was just seeing. I think I was seeing if it could move.
If it would just move, you could see the
But I was also in a state that you should never, ever, ever, ever be even thinking of anything astral if you've been drinking or if you're under the influence.
In the really dark space.
And that was when that happened. So I shouldn't have done that. No. I probably. You never know.
No, you have to take it. If you're going to do anything like that, you've got to take it seriously. You've got to cleanse it. You've got to ask for all kinds of high guidance and stuff. It's a serious thing, and also apparently I understand that there is a point where you just say end, but you have to do some kind of ritual to end it because it's like an open telephone. You don't put the telephone down.
Goodbye.
And the energy is still running into the house.
The planchette up to goodbye.
Yeah, you do that, but apparently you're supposed to do more than that because that doesn't actually. It puts the phone down, but it doesn't put it back.
How do you hang up on the astral world?
I don't know. I just know that's one of the theories. If you're supposed to do something that really puts the phone down, as it were.
I think some people when it actually starts moving, it starts cooking, like that, because there is otherworldly energy, and when you are drinking and thinking that it's just for fun. Something gross like what happened the other night, which I was not, obviously don't drink. I haven't drank for 14 years. I was back there gathering that information, but I was extremely empathetic with what was taking place. So I was feeling the pain of the people that were suffering, and that gross thing stuck to us, and it came in for 2 days.
Yeah.
So what can you imagine if there was an actually intentional bringing something in?
It's like, not only I'm going to open the door, but I'm going to call you from across the road and say, come in.
No, we're good.
We're good. It's okay. You can stay it there.
It wasn't entertaining. There was nothing Mattel or Parker Brothers about it. Is it Mattel or Parker Brothers? I can't remember if it was or not.
It's one of those.
You wanted to talk about, before we go, because I can see our time is going, The Last English Witch.
Oh, yeah. That was really interesting. And it's The Last English Witch is one of those cases which is far more intriguing because of the provability to certain factors in the story. So the last person to be tried for witchcraft in England was, do you know the date?
Oh, God. Oh, 1940?
Yeah.
Hang on. 5.
No, I think it's 43.
Damn, I was going to say 3.
Anyway, but it's during the war.
Yeah, okay.
That might seem really bizarre, but what happened is there was a medium called Helen Duncan. Now, Helen Duncan, she did a number of seances in Portsmouth, which is a home, which, like Plymouth, is one of the homes of the Navy in the UK. It was heavily bombed during the war, and she did a number of seances. And actually, there were air raids going on. There was bombing while she was doing it. So she was in this very kind of wartime environment, and she was taking several. She did do several seances that went well in a way. And what was one of the things is people in the seances before we get on to why she was tried for witchcraft, people were saying that she was able to, spirits are coming forth really close to them of people they knew. It wasn't just voices, and they were materializing, and they could see the details which they knew. They could see moles and hairs, and they weren't exactly solid, but they recognized these are his mothers and daughters, husbands and wives.
So you mean the accuracy? It just wasn't like a guessing.
So there were a number of people which was put down to hysteria at the time. Now, where Helen got into trouble was she started to give basically state secrets and information that could help the Germans.
Oops.
So it happened twice. The first time there was a sinking of the ship called the Byron. Now the Byron went down with I think 800 men.
Oh my God.
And she started, and there were several people at the seance, and they came forward, and one was supposed to have been seen, and they actually, he didn't give the name of the ship, but the audience could read on his hat, the way the sailors have their name, HMS Byron, His Majesty's ship Byron. And so they could see the word Byron was on his hat, and that's where they read, that the audience got the information that Byron had gone down. It was an important ship, but it wasn't actually declared because of morale for 2 months afterwards.
Really?
Now, there is some skeptics who will say, yes, but a few naval officers did know.
Well, of course they would. How can you not know 800 people went down?
Yeah, but they didn't release it.
But the parents...
Yeah, they didn't tell them. They didn't
so
tell all of them.
2 months they just thought their boys were busy?
They just had to, because it was coming over. It would take ages for the convoy to come over because it was coming over from the States. And they had to prepare, and there was kind of wartime reasons.
I understand.
But the other aspect was another ship, which was the HMS Hood, which I think was a battleship. Now the Hood went down more or less whilst she was giving a séance, and there was a high-ranking naval officer in the séance, and he left the room, went to a phone, phoned up the Admiralty, and said, "I think the Hood might have gone down."
Because of what she said?
Because of what she'd said. And it was so, the information that was coming through her was so explicit about where it had gone down. He knew where the Hood was, and he said she couldn't know this geographical location. He was really concerned. And the Admiralty said, no, it hasn't gone down. 2 days later, the Admiralty learnt it had been sunk at exactly the time she said. Now, when this high-ranking officer phoned up the Admiralty and said, "I think the Hood's been sunk," they said no. It took 2 days for them to find out. 2 days after the séance, and no one could have found out because it was sunk mid-Atlantic.
Why would they try her for witchcraft? Why wouldn't they use her as a tool and have her help?
Well, that's an interesting question, but I think the idea, I don't know. There was a dichotomy
that's
there.
Weird.
I think. We're in different times. I think I would
still use that as a positive.
Well, exactly. Me too. But for some reason, they decided that she was a security. She was giving away too many state secrets. So she was tried for witchcraft.
Could they not say that there was a plus side?
Well, I don't know why they couldn't. But you'd think but I think
what happened in her trial?
There were lots of people coming forward, and they were expressing really quite firm. She had hundreds of people who across society, and soldiers and all kinds of people who were coming forward and saying, "I've been at these and I saw what happened," and they wouldn't take. They were refusing to take the evidence. And then she said, "I tell you what, I will just let me do it. I'll do it here for you." And they wouldn't let her. They wouldn't let her actually go through a seance situation and show them what she did. So she was set up. So there was a definite reason.
Wait a minute. They tried this woman for witchcraft, but they let all the witches stand against the cliff of Dover and hold their little wands up to change the weather in France.
But they weren't giving information that could help the Germans.
So the witchcraft is okay as long as...
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't witchcraft. It was they used the Witchcraft Act, which was like to falsify talking to devils or something. It was an ancient act.
I understand.
And it was, but I can't work this one out myself. But the the theory is she was just becoming too dangerous because she was told to shut up. Basically, she was told not to be given because it was affecting people's morale, and the words are spreading like wildfire. These ships are going down. Things are not as good as we're saying. It's 1940, and they basically over 1940, 41, 42, they had to. I think she was warned and basically said, "You've got to stop this. You can't. This is affecting the war. The morale of people is really going down because you shouldn't be. We have to let this out in a certain way."
No, they wanted control of the information.
Yeah, because people are going to panic, and you could give something out really dangerous. And she was on this kind of astral plane, whatever, and just giving out information. And from their perspective, they were just saying, "Well."
I think that would be really useful in a war.
So do I, but...
Don't you?
So Helen Duncan, it was...
Helen Duncan, the last woman tried for witchcraft.
Yeah.
I think humanity has a lot to learn. I really do. If you use it for nefarious or selfish means, then that's one thing. That's the wrong thing. If you're using it to help humanity, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you have. Hey, we're coming up on an hour. Does it feel like it?
Nope.
I walked to the scariest castle in the UK today in the woods.
Did. There's a lot of ghosts.
You know what? I told Alex the ghost stories that actually we walked. It's almost 7 miles round trip, and it's because it's the castle in the woods, and it's about it's just out that way. But it is kind of scarier at night when you think of where we were at.
It is,
and it's not. It's Barry Pomeroy Castle. We can talk about that another time. But so it's been a big day.
It's spooky, though. I must admit, I've been around the walls on the outside, and I've been in. And when you go inside, the atmosphere changes.
Does it? We didn't go in.
Yeah, because as soon as you step over the threshold, suddenly you feel yourself is a bit more.
Yeah, I did tell him about the very beautiful sister. Who was her older sister was jealous because all the boyfriends wanted the younger sister. She was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And you know what that's like.
Yeah, it's tough.
Having somebody so beautiful. No, what happened was her older sister locked her in the tower and to starve to death. So apparently she's one of the great ladies up there. And this is loosely speaking, there's so many stories, but the other ones were the two men who rode their horses off of the cliff in order to avoid capture and torture. So I told Alex those stories as we were walking up there. Now tonight, it seems a little bit kind of scarier because you're thinking about the castle. The castle's usually on a hilltop or something, but a castle in the woods, it's abandoned and
yeah, because it's a strange one because it's like a plateau. Because if you enter it from the side of our houses, it's not on a hill, but if you enter it from the back, it's above you. So
yeah, it is. It was a beautiful day. There's pictures on Ann Kelly Facebook if you'd like to see it. It was a gorgeous day. There was nothing negative about it at all. But you know what? We might be taking a little hiatus from the show for just a week because we are traveling to the States. We will be traveling to the States to see my dad.
Yeah.
So we will be en route. We might do Stories from the Standing Room from the motel room. Would you like to? It's not quite the same.
Let's see how it goes.
Stories from the
hotel room, the haunted hotel.
But it might not be haunted because they're all new and might not.
No point, yeah.
I don't know. Well, you never know. It doesn't have to be old.
Yeah.
I'm sure something happened on those planes up there. It might not. Yeah. But we will be traveling in between. So we will be coming back, and we do need your ghost stories. Yeah. We need you to submit them. StoriesfromtheStandingroom.com. Please hit up husband at StoriesfromtheStandingroom or Ann at StoriesfromtheStandingroom. Join us on Twitter at StandingRoomHRH. Join us on Facebook, won't you? Please.
Yes, please.
At Facebook.com/Stories from the Standing Room and YouTube.
Yep.
Stories from the Standing Room. We've got more subscribers.
Excellent.
Just little itty bitty growth. It's a little bit of growth. And SoundCloud. Thank you, SoundCloud. SoundCloud is pretty amazing. They've hung out through the entire drama of our audios. They've actually stood there when we're talking like this every minute. So anyway, we want to say thank you, Facebook Live.
Thank you
for being our audience because you kind of hold us accountable and keep us in check if that's even possible. So next time we come on will be episode 11.
11. Yeah, because I forgot. I've completely.
Yeah, this is episode 10. We're in the double digits. This is a big deal.
Yeah, okay, confusing.
It's a very big deal. And there are a lot of paranormal podcasts out there, but we want your stories. We want to share them. If you share them elsewhere, there's no reason you can't share them with us.
No.
As well. So we will have the visitor, and we might even talk about channelings, and we need. The scarier, the better. So if you have any... I wouldn't call what we shared earlier in the story an EVP because it's not a voice phenomenon. It's a sound phenomenon.
It's a sound. It's kind of verging on that.
So what is it? ESP?
It's something.
Extrasensory perception?
No, it's kind of just sound.
Electronic sound phenomenon? What the hell was it? Let's play one more time for our listeners who have not heard this before we close. Okay, here we go.
Yep.
Then in last week when we were doing our show, We had one feed coming from the camera, which we ended up having to use that audio. Another feed was done through the splitter that was laying on this table that is from 1680, 1690. All right, here we go. And so the sound that was captured by the camera is all animals. Yeah. Oh, that was it was something that was absolutely very when we had a language guest that visited us from Saudi Arabia, absolutely disliked cats more than anyone I ever met.
I think he disliked animals.
Okay, there he is, disliking animals, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's the feed. That's really what happened. Here is what was captured by this, okay? So here we go. Anyone I ever met.
I think he disliked animals.
Okay, here we go. Is that it? Here we go. Hang on. Go. Stand by.
All animals. Yeah. Oh. It's actually, you know what? It's actually Saudi Arabia absolutely disliked cats more than anyone I ever met.
Dislike animals.
Completely unexplainable. Sounds like a clock. Sounds like a wind-up. Sounds like maybe a slab of meat.
Yeah, we can't work out if it sounded like clock or if it sounded like kitchen. We don't know.
Should we do this again to see what it says?
No.
Oh, come on.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. We love you very much.
We do.
Thanks for joining us for episode 10. We will see you for episode 11 shortly.
We will.
And thank you for all that you are and all that you do. We love you very much.
Take care. We love you. Bye-bye.